Hello and welcome to History Happened Everywhere.
The verdict.
This is our after show podcast where we look back at the previous episode, Greenland. So if you haven't listened to that, go back, check it out, and then come back. Otherwise, there will be spoilers ahead. Is your underwear clean?
When I last smelled it.
Which means either yes, it's clean as he smells it regularly, or he waits until he can smell it before he cleans it.
Lovely.
So, hello, welcome to History Happened Everywhere. I'm here with Ryan Weir, the co-host with the most.
Hello.
And, of course, the man wielding the gavel, the bewigged Paul Dersley.
Hello.
So, Paul, I understand that you've got a week off coming up.
Yes, I do.
Are you excited for it?
No.
It's good to take time off.
It is. It'll be okay when it's there, but it's always hectic in the run up.
We were wondering, if you wanted to take off 2 weeks, we could look at finding like a substitute for you, like a substitute.
Like a locum.
Like a locum, yeah. So we had a little look online to see if there was another Paul Dersley that we could find. And it turns out that you're pretty much the only Paul Dersley.
Well, I do have a second cousin called Paul.
Is he a Dersley as well?
Yes.
So there are two Paul Dursleys.
There's a challenger.
Yes, so we were in the same year at school.
You had two Paul Dursleys in the same class, and yet we can't find a second Paul Dersley in the world.
I didn't say that. I said yeah.
So what we did discover, though, and the internet gave us this information, is that your middle name is Kyle.
How would the internet give you that?
Oh, my friend.
Is that true?
You'll have to ask my mother, but how did you find...
Page 1 of Google.
You must run. You're quite middle class, so you must have at least two middle names.
No, I just have the one. Edward. I think Pete has two.
No, mine is James.
James.
Maybe we should go to PJ and Ryan and judge Kyle.
That is awesome. Right,
Yeah,
we're looking up.
Yes.
No, we're looking up your rapper name. It's happening. We're gonna do it. Right. Okay. There is a name generator here for rapper names. Right. You have to fill in a few things. So, what is your favourite TV character, Paul?
I should go with journalist James Burke.
Ooh. Okay. Something really pleasant.
Snoring.
It's kind of satisfying. I could see that.
It's not satisfying.
That is satisfying.
What is an adjective to describe you? Now, we did this last week.
We did.
And I think we discovered...
I think the answer is fat.
Erudite, I think, was what we said, wasn't it?
Oh, God. You keep on
So I'm going to
about
put
that
erudite in. The name of your favourite childhood pet?
Tiddles.
All right. That's it. That's all we need to do. Right. So rapper names. Hit the button. And the rapper names are Totes Erudite.
Totes Erudite. I like that.
The Real Paul.
The Real Paul.
Dersley, but with the S is like an American dollar sign.
Oh, that's a good one.
Well, you might as well make the L a pound sign then.
Yeah.
Oh.
Very good. I like that.
And the E a euro sign. Can we do your name entirely in currency?
Okay.
Is the Y a yen?
Yes.
What's a D?
A dong. and the R will be rupee, of course.
There's some more here. Kulo Dersley. Oh, come on. Paulacious D. That's
Paulacious D.
Erudite man.
So I'm not sure this website is trying that hard in some instances.
I think I can work out the algorithm that it's using.
Erudite face Paul.
Where does face come from?
I don't know. Bling-a-ding tiddles.
Tiddles.
I think you're much more interested in this than I am.
What was your
I like
choice?
personally erudite face Paul. That's a personal favourite of mine.
It's one word, erudite face.
Oh,
According to
that makes
this.
all the difference.
Any of those particularly stand out for you, Paul?
Bling tiddles or whatever.
Bling-ting tiddles.
Bling-ting tiddles. Oh,
Anyway,
dear.
right, we should...
Do you realise you're just laughing at random words?
Yeah, I know. Random words are hilarious.
Bling-a-ding tiddles. All right.
Enough shenanigans. We need to get on with the job at hand, which is to look back over the last episode and assess it. But we could use a reminder. Ryan, are you ready for your 1 minute summary?
I, Peter, am always ready.
Then go.
Greenland straddles the Arctic Circle and is therefore very cold. 80% of the landmass is covered in thick ice, in some places as deep as 10 Eiffel Towers deep. Greenland is officially within the Kingdom of Denmark, but the Americans played a caretaker role over the country during the Second World War. In this time, they used the opportunity to build a few remote weather stations. This kick-started a special relationship between the countries, which culminated in a shared agreement for the USA to build an airbase in a remote Greenlandic town called Thule. The airbase was built in secret and stayed relatively under the radar until 1968, when a US Air Force B-52 bomber carrying 4 thermonuclear bombs crashed 7 miles outside of the Thule airbase, spreading radiation over 3 square miles. As per their agreement, the US and Danish governments confirmed that no nukes have ever been flown or stored over Greenland, and go ahead and just clear up the wreckage. 20 years later, however, a curious cat called Poul Brink discovers through a robust investigation that the governments lied about the use of nukes in and over Greenland. In an award-winning book, he revealed the lies and culpability of the 2 major governments, resulting in compensation for the many Thule workers who were seriously ill due to radiation poisoning. Sadly, Poul Brink died unexpectedly just 4 years after the publication of his book.
That was last week's episode done, summarised nicely. Nice one, son. Now we're over to a young Dersley, who's gonna tell you what he thought of thee. He'll take you apart without any care. He's the lovely Poul Dersley. The lovely Poul Dersley.
Excellent summary, sir. Well done. Good work. And you say sadly he died. There is that element of it, but I couldn't help but feel at least he got to the point where he had published his book, achieved his goal. It would have been much worse if he'd have passed without ever having revealed that
the big thing.
Yeah.
He got to see the effects of his investigation come to its fruition, right?
Yeah, so I think it's it's obviously sad that he passed away, but as timings go, at least he had that benefit of that knowledge.
That's true. Paul, what did you think of the episode?
It was all right.
Okay, good. What did you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy? Did you learn anything new?
I did know about Chrome Dome and sort of the nuclear bombs falling on Spain as a part of it.
Palomeros.
Yes, that's the one.
I was surprised by how many times they accidentally dropped their nuclear bombs. It was the sort of thing I thought I would have remembered, but I had no recollection of any of these things going on at the time.
I mean, you weren't around then, though, right? This was during the 60s.
It would be early 60s,
true,
yes.
Yeah, true. But I was thinking even into the 80s when the Denmark stuff was going on and everyone was listening to Recept 10.
Yeah.
Even then, I don't really remember anyone
Well, you'd think this would
saying-
be much bigger news, right?
Well, I thought so too. In general, it's like big accidents. In my mind, it was all fine and the Cold War ended, not they kept dropping nuclear waste everywhere, which is kind of what I got out of last week.
Well, but we didn't hear about it because it was the Americans. If the Russians had done it and it would be found out, of course, it would be headline news, as you did in your little skit, the Russian American, the Dr. Strangelove takeoff.
Right. Yes.
Yes, well, that film contains one of my favourite lines in all of films. You can probably guess which one it is.
No, go on, tell us.
Gentlemen, please don't fight in here. This is the war room.
Yeah, I mean, just in all though, like, it was a shocking story, right? Can you imagine being Poul Brink and discovering it for the first time?
I think shocking is the right word, but also unsurprising is also another word.
But I mean, I think we just place so much faith in our governments to not lie to us in such a brazen way.
Oh, I'm not sure. I expect them to lie to us in a very brazen way.
All governments lie. And definition of what is a lie. Generally, I think the richer the government, the more weigh out the things they have to lie about, like the idea of digging 2,000 miles worth of tunnels through a glacier.
Moving ice.
and then, just someone needs to say, actually, ice flows. So it's amazing that it wasn't stopped so much earlier.
Absolutely right, yeah. You were referencing Project Iceworm there. which
Yes.
was the Americans' attempt to dig under the entirety of Greenland.
Unless it was an April Fool's joke. It could be an April Fool's joke. I don't know.
Well, it's possible, because they also had a couple of other projects about building bases under the ice. 20 feet under the ice was sort of like as deep as they went. There was Project Tuto, which was a camp about 200 miles north of Thule. And then there was Fist Clench, which is another great name.
So is that a place without any toilets?
Fist Clench. How about that?
So what were they? These were underground bases?
These
or?
are underground bases that were built. They used Swiss mining technology. Well, not mining, but like snow digging technology. And they brought these over to Greenland, and they were digging trenches that were huge. They had messes down there and canteens, as we spoke about, shops and all sorts. Fist Clench was one of the first. And I understand that Camp Century, which is where Project Iceworm was located, will, in the year 2100, if temperatures continue to stay at the same temperature as they are today, all of the ice will melt around it, and the depth of how big the Americans had actually dug these trenches out will show, and reveal
guys sitting there like, oh, hi.
Well, and will reveal the nuclear reactors that they had in the base, in nuclear reactors that they have in the base, and plus other sort of biological and other chemical waste that was just left there.
Can I just stop you there? You've just reminded me. What are the things that fly in the sky that you go in as a passenger called?
An airplane.
No.
An aeroplane.
Yes.
Really? Okay. What's an airplane then?
The American spelling of it, or the American way to say aeroplane.
Oh, okay.
So what's a seaplane? A CO-plane?
My favourite.
No, a seaplane is a seaplane.
A seaplane is my favourite form of transport, by the way. Not that I've ever been in one, but I want
Yeah,
one.
no, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. It's the best. There is no other vehicle that can get you anywhere on the planet.
And you sort of think you're semi-safe as well. If it sort of falls out of the sky, it's got pontoons it can land.
Most of the planet is made of water.
I think in order to own a seaplane, you have to be an archaeologist adventurer type, don't you?
Right, yeah. And have a fight on like the big wheel things.
Yeah, with a sabre.
With a sabre, yeah. Anyway,
I've never been on a seaplane, but I've been to Vancouver.
I thought he was going to stop there.
But by the harbour, there are hundreds of private and charter and even commercial seaplanes that generally fly to Vancouver Island or some of the internal lakes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You see them sort of land and take off all the time.
When you look at the waterways of Canada, you can totally understand why they would have loads of seaplanes. Well, I want one. I want to land it on the Thames.
All right, I'll see what the budget stretches to, see if we can get you a seaplane of your own.
seaplane. I love it. It's great. It's the best vehicle. We were talking about ice bases and how exciting that is. It's reminiscent. It makes me think of Star Wars, the second film.
When you say second, do you mean chronologically second, or
No.
second in the order that they were made?
Episode 5.
The Empire Strikes Back. So in that, Luke Skywalker is trapped out in the cold, like our pilot who was bailed out and was cold in minus 80 degrees
and
winter.
And Luke was wrapped up in a tauntaun.
He was. He cut his space horse open and he crawled into his space horse. And I was wondering that maybe Captain could have been a bit more imaginative. Instead of wearing his parachute, he could have hunted himself down a polar bear, killed it somehow, got inside of that.
Imagine walking back to Thule Air Base inside a polar bear.
You get nearby and they shoot you.
just thinking about it, do you think he'd be in a fit state to fight a polar bear after falling out of the sky?
We could have landed on it.
Yes, by a stroke of good fortune, I've landed and concussed this polar bear.
Well, he's American. He could have given it a Coca-Cola and it would have been fine. They'd have been good friends. So we were talking about ice bases.
Ice bases, yes. Well, no, I had a question, actually. You were talking about the ice revealing all of the weapons and chemicals that have been left behind. And that put me in mind of the nuclear bombs that were dropped and sunk into the ocean. And you said that they exploded, but in such a way that they didn't blow up like nuclear bombs, but to render them safe. And I was quite happy with that explanation last week. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, how do you blow up a bomb without that bomb
to stop it from blowing up more?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer. So, Mr. Paul Dersley, do you know why they put regular explosives in a nuclear bomb to prevent it from actually going off?
Yes.
Okay, please explain to us.
Well, you've got two different types of explosive. You have the chemical explosive and you have the nuclear explosive. The chemical explosive will destroy the detonator effectively for the nuclear explosive. And the nuclear explosive can only go off when the nuclear detonator effectively initiates the chain reaction.
So what's that? What is that? Is that like presumably it's not just a spark, because the explosion in the regular explosion would...
Oh, okay. Think of it as if you had a match and you threw it at a piece of aluminium, for example, nothing had happened. But if you put a sort of blowtorch that was constantly running on a piece of aluminium, that piece of aluminium would itself burn. I don't know whether you've ever seen burning aluminium. It's quite impressive.
I haven't, no.
But what effectively the chemical explosion does is it will destroy the blowtorch. It will never concentrate the energy enough to set off the nuclear reaction.
So the explosion of a crashing plane and explosives is still not enough to set off a nuclear bomb.
Correct. It depends how the bomb is set up. But also the flip side of that is you can detonate a nuclear bomb by putting two pieces of plutonium together. As simple as that.
Or just rubbing them.
Yeah.
That sets off a nuclear explosion.
Well, it's not so much rubbing. It's what happens is if there is a certain amount of mass of plutonium, say, in an area, it will just automatically start off the chain reaction. But of course, you'd never use that in a nuclear bomb because it's too dangerous. So what you have is some sort of assembly, which, well, in the early bombs, it was effectively like a gun. That there was like a ring of plutonium that wasn't critical, and there was a little piece of plutonium at the other end. And so chemical explosives kicked that down, and as soon as that went in the middle of the plutonium ring, there was enough there for it to start the reaction. And, people had been killed by plutonium, accidentally letting two bits of plutonium get too close together, and it irradiated them and they died.
Oh, so it didn't explode, it just irradiated them.
It would, yes, it in that sense it would irradiate, but in the nuclear bomb it would actually explode. A lot of the explosion is to do with the other stuff that's there and how the charges are shaped.
So in my head now, I've got a gun pointed at the bomb with a bit of material that will trigger the explosion.
Yeah.
And our safety explosion is blowing the gun mechanism up so that bit of material can't go where it needs to go.
Yes, effectively, yeah.
Okay. Then I feel my question has been answered successfully.
Yeah.
I shall give you a B+ for that answer, Paul.
Oh, thank you.
So then why is it a problem if it's at the bottom of the sea?
Well, there's a hell of a lot of plutonium down there. You couldn't detonate it. Rogue states or terrorist organisations could get their hands of it, and there's quite a lot of plutonium there. All you have to do is sort of squish it together, as I said, and bingo.
So it's still a potential bomb, and a lot of people would like a potential bomb.
It's the uranium and plutonium that's useful.
I have a question. Where do you get plutonium from?
You make it.
Right, so you don't dig it up out of the ground. It's not like gold or whatever.
No, it's a transuranic element, so it doesn't exist in nature.
Okay.
I think we've had this discussion before.
Have we?
It was about was it Kazakhstan had more elements in it than it could possibly have.
Okay, so you mix it up in a jar and you leave it for a week and it rises and it's ready for the oven, and in this case the oven is the bomb. That's in my head how this works.
I really don't know what you're talking about.
You guys were all using analogies. I thought I was being left out. I thought I'd join in.
I feel like I'm part of the Manhattan Project right now.
Do you have a bomb in the oven? Yes.
Right, let's talk about some more pleasant things. I want to talk about appetizers.
Oh, yes. Delicious.
So that was
caviar.
the first time I've eaten fish eggs before, let alone lumpfish roe.
What is the difference then between roe? So roe I've heard used as generic for any kind of fish egg. Why are some things called caviar which are still just roe? And when can we call any roe caviar? Are they
yes,
just two interchangeable?
I think you probably can. It's by convention. I should think it's more than anything else.
So it's not like how it's served or prepared or anything.
No, it's just fish eggs.
Yeah. So you just harvest the eggs from a fish, put it in a jar, and sell it for £1 billion.
Is that why they call them goldfish?
If it's lungfish caviar or whatever, if it's sort of a beluga caviar at £3,000 a kilogram, it's a bit different. Lumpfish caviar at £5 a pot.
I couldn't eat a kilogram of fish roe. I think I'd be really sick.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford a kilogram of this by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
It's probably for the best.
So, Petey, you took home
I did. I nearly got through it. I had
leftovers.
caviar for lunch, in fact. I was feeling decadent.
And what about you, Paul? I sent you some. Have you tried it yet?
No, I haven't. I received it today, and thank you very much. That was a nice surprise.
Would you mind trying some while we're recording?
Well, I've had it before. I know exactly what it tastes like. Okay, we'll stop recording now, and I'll go and do it for you. Yeah, I don't have an ivory spoon, though.
Oh, is that important?
No. Aren't you supposed to eat it off the back of your hand?
How about the thighs of a virgin? Or was that just cigars?
Okie dokie.
While Bapper Burke is going to get himself some...
Erudite face Paul.
while he's going to get himself some caviar. Peter, can you tell me what the most expensive food you've ever eaten is?
Yes, I am not a massive eater because I lack a sense of smell. My taste buds are correspondingly wilted, shall we say. And I have a tendency to eat a lot of spicy food because it kind of breaks through. So consequently, I don't really seek out really expensive things. I have had a number of tasting menus at Michelin-starred restaurants.
That counts.
So probably those are the most expensive things.
Of like sea foam with
blood
orange
on
and stuff.
an eyelid.
On an eyelid?
Yeah, exactly.
I think you went to the wrong place. I wonder if anyone serves it. That would be a good little appetizer. Just
eyelid?
An eyelid, yeah.
I mean, the scarcity value makes it appealing, but is anyone eating eyelid these days?
No, maybe not.
Okay, I have some caviar, and what am I supposed to? Am I supposed just to put it on the toast?
Yeah. Well, we had sour cream and a little bit of chives and all that stuff, but if you haven't got that,
Goes
just
fine with a bit of bread.
yam it down your throat. How are you finding it, Paul? Tell us, walk us through your tasting sensation.
Can't you hear me chewing on it?
Yeah.
On the toast. It's very salty and fishy.
Yeah.
Salty and fishy. Pop that on the label. The
Salty,
next advert
fishy.
almost writes itself. It's salty and fishy.
Yeah, right. Well, that was fascinating.
I'm still eating. Be quiet.
Can you give it a grade?
Well, I'd give this a C-. If you'd have sent me some beluga, that may have been different.
So is beluga tasty? I mean, to me, I can't imagine a different tiny salty fish egg tasting substantially better in that sort of order of magnitude. What is so good about the beluga against the lumpfish?
Supposedly the beluga is a lot smoother and it has less bitterness. Supposedly. I've never had it, so I couldn't say.
The lumpfish roe is, as I said in the podcast, famed for its crunch.
I liked the crunch. I thought that was a selling point. If someone said this is less crunchy, I would be disappointed.
Oh, that
Beluga, looking
I
at
didn't
you.
really get the crunch because I was eating it on toast.
Right, I want to talk about Poul Brink.
Yes.
Do you feel like you can in any way relate to Poul Brink in his...
What, because I have the same name?
No, in his addiction to the truth.
Yeah, you're
He's
a man who
willing-
knows right and wrong and has
Yeah.
clarity of vision on these matters.
Justice.
To a certain extent, yes. When should you stop? And I would say I would, and most people would stop at a certain point. It is good that some people don't stop at a certain point. Perhaps on my part, and I should think for most people's part, it's cowardice.
It's understandable to be terrified of two governments going against you, one of which is the United States of America. To be told by the ambassador to stop investigating this now, and to think, nah, I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, yeah, it is. It's one of those things. If you were to read it in a thriller story, you'd think, oh my God, any normal person wouldn't do that. So,
Yeah, clearly, well, no normal person was Poul Brink.
No, he definitely wasn't.
Yes, I think, given the fact that he died after the revelations, there's no conspiracy theory there.
Ryan is not convinced. He's
No, I'm not. I don't know
Why
where I'm
kill
sitting
someone after? That's just revenge.
Vindictiveness.
Vindictiveness, that's not...
No, but we don't know that he wasn't looking into anything else. It's not like he was then sat back on his hands and done my
That
job.
went well.
Yeah. My guess is he was probably continuing the investigation in some manner. But I'm in no way
but
saying
don't forget,
that it
he was a jogger, and
Yeah,
They're always
it
dying.
happens. It definitely
joggers
happens.
die all the time.
When I was listening to the story, a little part of me was always thinking, I wonder when I'd have given up on all this and gone, okay, yep, no, I'll stop. Yep, no problem, boss. Yep, you got it. Doff cap, go back to work.
Probably the minute that the radio station says, stop looking into
I think
this.
that would have been, I'm like, well, okay, that's my job, I suppose.
my
I'll
job.
get to another story, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I have to say I admire the man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I can't make any judgments because I don't know him, and I'm not going to mention any names, but a lot of these, investigators, reporters are holier than thou.
I mean, I think that there is a tenacity that you've got to have, and I don't want to use the word selfish, but
Selfishness,
obsessive.
arrogance.
Yeah, when your family is on the line in that way. Yeah, and there is a question in the film The Idealist, that is flagged a couple of times, is why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you think the public needs to know? Do you think they really need to know, or do you think they just want the potholes filled in the streets? And, do they really need to know about something that happened 40 years ago?
Well, of course they want the potholes filled in the streets, but they also want this titillation and conspiracy. They also want Fantasy Island or whatever it's called.
The point I was saying, Paul, is that, the government response to Paul when they pull him to one side off the record is to say, they try and turn it onto him and saying that you're saying that you're this great big voice of justice, but actually what are you doing it for? It's just your own satisfaction of needing to uncover the truth, that actually you're putting a lot at risk of doing this, and it's really only just for your own selfish needs. That's the argument that they
I think
raise.
the gigantic counter-argument to that would be the money that went to the people who got cancer.
Well, they got nothing.
It was
50,000 kroner is £5,000.
It's pretty small.
It's
But
tiny.
they were on course for nothing prior to that.
There is also that.
So that's at least a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the money was less the issue. It
No,
was
the
more the truth.
acknowledgement.
The acknowledgement that it wasn't a loneliness.
So there was an acknowledgement. There wasn't, we don't take any responsibility, but here's 50 grand.
I don't think there's been a public apology by the government, no.
But it's as near as damn it, isn't it?
Okay, I suppose it's to do with the moral compass, isn't it? You know that governments, for whatever reason, can't be moral all the time. You have a terrorist in front of you in your prison who has got the details of the bomb that's going to go off. You can use, was it pentyl nitrate or whatever in him to get the stuff out, but it'll kill him. Do you do it? Of course you do. So if an investigative journalist were to do that, the vast majority of the public would say, so what? Whereas if you're saying this when it's, okay, they said this and it was blatantly a lie, and then they said this to cover up the lie, that's a classic cover-up story, and that's the thing that, should be exposed. It's never the error, it's the lies of covering up the error that makes it worse.
And it's also the victim as well. Somebody did their job, did everything they were told for someone who is supposed to be looking after them and have their interests, and they don't. and they lie about it. And that's a vastly different thing for a government to do. There is no grey area for me in that. It's just an attempt to save some money at heart.
It was, yeah.
Well, save money, save face, stay in power, not get kicked out at the next election.
So, Paul, if I wrapped you in Bako foil and said, would you mind sweeping up that irradiated snow?
Well, of course I wouldn't
sign
do
that
it.
contract?
Of course I wouldn't do it. But if there was if I was a road sweeper and someone said clean up that snow and didn't tell you that it was radioactive, of course you'd do it.
Yeah, you would, yeah.
Especially if they, for some reason, said, "Oh, we'll give you double part time when you're doing that."
I mean, to be fair, these guys are in the army. Most of the workers are in. You were pretty much just ordered to do it. So there is that. The conditions that they had to clear up that mess in, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's dark and quite chilly.
It's always dark. It's always cold. It's all super windy too. Yeah, not ideal.
So I thought the secret star of the entire episode was the French explorer who happened upon the...
You like that guy?
I love that guy because I love the notion of this guy's walking back from the North Pole.
With his Eskimo assistant.
Right?
Yeah.
He's got a map which has nothing on it. He's trooping along. He sees this thing. And I just wonder what he said, because option one, that I would have thought the first thing you would think is, I'm hopelessly lost because there's no big base on my map. It wouldn't be, they're probably building a super secret research base.
No, I think if I was walking in eternal darkness across an icescape that I wasn't expecting to see anything because, the map is empty, and you see lights in the distance, you get over the horizon.
Well, you'd think you're being abducted by aliens.
No, I wouldn't. I'd think it was Santa's grotto.
No, he's coming from the North Pole, though.
Yeah, but it's all close enough.
He was a Santa hunter.
Yeah.
That's what... It was like, finally, I have found him.
Yeah.
The mythical Santa. What was he going to do with him? Capture him, or...?
Well, it probably looked like an enormous factory, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So they thought,
This is where the toys are made. I found it.
Yeah. So he reaches into his pocket and he's got the letter that he wrote
As a child.
Yeah. And it never got
posted because his father was run over by that tractor when he went towards
so
the
he's
post
come
box.
to post this letter and he's like, finally. And then he gets there and he discovers it's just nuclear bombs and stuff.
That's Booker Prize material, Ryan.
I'll be getting the Caviling Award for that one.
I think I now know what happened to Rudolph's nose.
Oh, yeah. He was near Thule.
He was. He took his nose in. That was it.
Isn't Thule actually spelled Thule or Thule? Because I always used to think it was called Thule.
I did as well.
Well, I did too until I started researching this.
It's one of those words I've only ever seen written down. I hadn't.
And you often see it on those little car accessories, things on the roof of your car. You'll get like a...
yes, there is a Thule roof rack.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's quite amazing though, isn't it? Like where that name originates, Thule. The ancient Greeks had a word for lands beyond the lands we know, the known lands. And the Romans had the same. It was beyond Britain, essentially. They didn't know what that was, but they knew there was a land there, and so they called it Thule.
Well, terra incognita, isn't it?
I mean, you're really scared, but nobody knows it's you.
Undiscovered land or unknown land.
Yes. So, Paul, do you want to ask us, or particularly Ryan, any explorations you'd like to delve into?
Yes. I do not know the answer to this question, and no doubt you will have done it in your research.
Pressure builds.
Hopefully. You always hear this story, and I don't know whether it's apocryphal, that there is more arable land in Greenland than there is in Britain.
Well, I can understand why that would be. I mean, only 80% of the country is covered in ice.
But you always hear this statistic that Greenland has more farmland or more land that could be farmed than Britain, and I always thought that's a bit of a. I'm sure that's.
I for one am tired of hearing that thing that I'm always hearing.
No, I haven't heard that, and that didn't present itself during the thing.
You didn't do very much research, did you?
But there were 3.6 Frances to a Greenland.
Well, I actually looked that up. It's 3.9.
So there's 4 Frances to a Greenland.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
are they sure? Question: are they sure Greenland is a single landmass?
Well,
I think the answer to that is yes, they are sure. But if you go down to Antarctica, it's not a single landmass. If all the ice were to go, there would be a number of large islands, basically.
We might see that in our own lifetimes.
Good Lord.
Possibly.
This is one way to find out. But...
Possibly. I sort of tying two of your things together, I always wonder what would happen if, say, and it would have to be the Americans, I suppose, would detonate a nuclear bomb under the ice. Would it be enough to melt the ice back to the bedrock, or would it just make an ice crater in it? You don't really see anything on the surface, do you, until after the explosion, when it all slumps down.
Well, I mean, there's still one down there, so there's a possibility that we may find out in the near future. So I think we're approaching that all-important moment of the actual verdict, Paul. Are you ready to render your judgment, sir?
Okay.
I'm going to give you some categories and I'm going to ask you for a verdict for each of them. Category number 1, newness of information, things you learned.
B-.
Okay, category number 2 is entertainment factor. How gripped were you?
C+.
Your third category is relevance. How well did he capture the topic, time and location?
C+. Yes, there weren't very many cats. I would have expected something about cats.
Yeah, no cats.
But the subject was cats.
Well, it wasn't. It was curiosity
killed the cat.
So what about Schrodinger's cat and curiosity?
What about it?
Well, it's not dead and not alive at the same time.
Well, then if you open the box and it's dead, then curiosity very much killed that cat.
Very good point.
Let's move on to Dersley factor. Do you have close affinity with Greenland? Do you think that it was something that doesn't interest you at all? How did you relate to it on a personal level?
I think you talk about the duplicity and the military bases. I found that very interesting.
Okay, well that sounded positive.
So I'll give you a B- for the Dersley factor.
Very tight with the grades today. I thought he was headed to an A- there.
No.
Okay, so that's all preamble for the main event.
Okay.
Mr. Paul Dersley, what is the verdict?
C+.
C+.
Oh, I think he's done you dirty there, mate.
Look,
Yeah.
Ryan. The main reason was you said the word nuclear about a dozen times in that, and for the first 6 times you pronounced it wrongly, and we had this discussion on this.
You did, yeah.
And
I didn't realise
I'm sorry, it's the N word that's done it for
Yeah,
you.
that must sunk you.
It was funny because we started recording, didn't we? And
We did.
I got about the first 2 in and went, oh no, because I knew how
Suddenly
many
realised.
times it gets mentioned.
The look on his face as he suddenly dawned on him that this was going to be a problem.
I then had to just exchange it for nukes at that point.
When I was listening to it, of course, I shouted out every single time that.
I accept my punishment.
Oh dear, right, well that goes in the book. But I personally would like to say that I found it to be a grade A performance.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thoroughly entertaining. I was gripped throughout and I felt like I was at the movies for part of it. It was rather excellent. So a lot to live up to for me. I will be, of course, covering our good friends, the Bulgarians, next time.
Bulgar.
Delighted to tell you is going swimmingly and I will have an excellent episode this time next week.
I'm looking forward to it. Oh, is it Bulgaria when?
It's 1910 to 1920. Bit of a busy period Europe-wise.
Yeah, right.
And the subject is writing.
So what did you have, 1910 to 1920? So slap bang in the First World War. Wow.
It's a busy time, that much I can tell you. And it is extremely complicated as well, I've found
So
out.
we're going to get the Treaty of Sèvres and all of that sort of stuff, are we?
Well, I can't give it away, mate.
Yeah.
There are treaties, though, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. This is going to be less about pelican nose eating and more about people dying.
It's definitely more history-ish history, I would say. But anyway, we shouldn't over-tease
Oh
it.
dear, Ryan. Even before it started, one feels the grade maybe slightly better than a C+.
Yes. So my topic, period, and...
Gets me a B instantly.
It's just, I've called this one the Dersley period time.
I send him caviar.
I know.
He gives me a C+.
I know. And all
What
I've
the
got to do
hell?
is describe several dry as dust treaties, and suddenly we're in the A zone. Never mind. Anyway, so again, Ryan, excellent episode,
Thanks, man.
regardless of what this crazy judge might have to say about matters.
Learned judge, I think you meant.
The erudite Paul Dersley.
No.
Pibbles D.
Yeah.
Okay, that's our show for this time. Thank you so much for listening. And if you'd like to get in touch with us about anything we've talked about, you can email us at hhepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you never know, you might feature in a future show.
Yes, absolutely. Like Matthew Milne, who wrote to us via our website saying that he loves the podcast. He's been listening to it and has been sharing it around to everyone he knows. He also asked where our first 10 episodes of the podcast are. And it's a very good point. We took our early episodes off because the quality isn't quite up to the levels of today, we were learning. So those ones are our pilot episodes, we kind of call them. Those are now on our website and they're available for you to go and stream or download from there. So head along to hhepodcast.com.
Yeah. Thank you, Matthew Milne, for you actually made that happen. We didn't have that archive up until you asked.
Yeah, that's really true. Also, we should mention other changes to the website is we now have merchandise available on the site. So if you go to hhepodcast.com/merch, you can see t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and other bits and bobs. So you can pick yourself up something there. Get yourself a lovely verdict shirt. It all goes to feeding Paul Dersley caviar.
Lumpfish caviar, by the way.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And the more you buy, the closer we get to the beluga target. That's all I'm saying. We'll be back with another episode soon. In the meantime, thank you very much, Ryan, for an excellent service.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much, Paul, for excellent judgment.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
That is noted.
For future reference. Nevertheless, that is everything. So all that remains to say is...
You've been listening to... History Happened Everywhere.
The verdict. Hey Siri, turn on the lights.
All right.
House lights.
Have your lights turned on.
No, we're just saying like the house lights, like in a theatre, like get him off the stage. Turn the house lights up.
I got it. Yes, finally. I don't really get these thespian gags.